right. So Bob, thank you again for
My
doing
pleasure.
this interview.
Yeah, this was fun.
It's a very short
I was just
notice,
to say, short notice. Here I am
and
on
you
a
showed
Saturday
up,
morning.
and I appreciate that, and also to Beth Deacon, who had put us in touch together, and when I started working with Beth, um, you know, I never even heard of Ironwood, unfortunately, and the Upper Peninsula. I just sort of know it by the Upper Peninsula. And 4 years ago, I came down here, and this is one of the first places that Beth brought me to, myself and my colleague, and we had a tour of your company, and I'm like, I know these hats. I've seen these. I've seen these around. I've seen them as far as in South America, believe it or not.
Oh,
I had no idea that this is where these have been manufactured, and so that has sometimes there's a product inside your life, and you just never know what's behind it. So this is a great opportunity for us to be able to talk to you and be able to learn a little bit about this. But I would like to start all the way back, right? So you were born here in
yes.
Ironwood,
Hmm.
okay? Um, Within Ironwood itself, because now you live someplace else, right? A little bit further out of
Yeah,
here
I live on a small lake 20
on a
miles from
smaller.
here. Hmm.
Okay. What was it like growing up here in Ironwood? What was it like back then?
Well, I was Ironwood was a mine town, just about to leave being a mine town. It was, when I was 8 years old, it was the mines were closed basically, and so there was a big exodus from the community. Half of the town
Mhm.
went in half when I was about in sixth grade. Lost a bunch of classmates and things like that. But a mine
Mhm.
town is notorious for having only two classes, an upper and a lower,
Okay.
and usually divided by a railroad tracks. And that's where I lived. I lived on the lower side of the railroad tracks in a home that was. I lived in a row of houses that were all exactly the same. Only my neighbors were the opposite
Mhm.
floor plan as my house was, and we shared a driveway, and you could on the other side you could touch the houses. So we lived in this very little community. And when you think about growing up, it was the neighborhood boys that I remember, the five of them that we just hung around with and just enjoyed. One of
Mhm.
them I'm still very very close to. Um, but it was um, going out and playing and going to school. I went to the Catholic school, which was
Mhm.
a minority here, and maybe less than 10% of the school size difference between the school that most of the kids went to. So in my
Okay.
neighborhood, most of the kids went to the other school. So I was kind of separated by the school, but it was just
Mhm.
fine. I had a wonderful,
Mhm.
content, kind of a Mayberry kind of
Upbringing.
happy
Mhm.
childhood. And I had
Small family or a big family?
just two. My mother had cancer after she had me, so she couldn't have any more children.
Oh,
So she had to
sorry to hear
stop at
that.
two. And
So
so
you're the eldest.
I'm the youngest.
I mean, the youngest.
Hmm.
Okay.
So my sister, yeah, and I was more athletic than most. Of
Mhm.
those five kids, I was definitely the one athlete. So sports was a big part of it. So for me to get sports, I had to go more than a block away from home and meet. But I lived close to the high school that had a baseball field and a football field, and so we played. Mostly when you think about it, I remember summers and being in the
Mhm.
neighborhoods and just being free. I mean, so much different that people would even anywhere in the world right now wouldn't understand what those
What that kind of
neighborhoods were
freedom
like.
is.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I agree with that. So okay. So you went on from there um, after high school.
Yeah,
Um,
so high school,
mhm.
if you want me to keep going, then high school was good for me. I ended up going to the same school as your associate went to, Michigan
Okay.
Tech.
And that was okay, right? Yeah, Michigan Tech. Mhm.
And one of the interesting things that happened there was um, when I got there, it was a long before Beth went there. And so
Okay.
I wanted to be a mechanical engineer, and at the time, the school I went to was basically sending just about everybody down to Detroit to work in
Mhm.
the auto industry because a mechanical engineer, you just was just an
Right.
automatic. And this school was like the feeder of very prestigious name in
Mhm.
um, half the cars in America were designed by students from that school.
From
So it was
Michigan
very,
Tech. Mhm.
but for some reason, I couldn't grab onto the goal of
Mhm.
putting a lab coat on and working in Detroit, which was, it's the same state,
Mhm.
but this is a lot different than Detroit is. And no offense, but it's not what I couldn't grab onto that. And so I did a timeout after my freshman year and said, I'm just not sure I want to keep working this hard. I wasn't really struggling. I mean, it's a
Mhm.
hard school. It's not an easy school, but and so my dad, my dad was a fireman,
Okay.
a firefighter. He worked 24-hour shifts. So he
Mhm.
went to work in the morning at 7 a.m. in the morning.
Mhm.
And then if there was no fire, he actually slept in a bed at the fire hall and came home at 7 a.m. the next day. So he worked 7 to 7. And if
Okay.
there was no fire, he was a working man who came home and had a completely full day off
Oh, wow.
until he went to work the next day.
Mhm.
So all of the firemen had odd jobs, and that's how I knew your friend Tom. He
Mhm.
was kind of in that network of people. My dad helped the furnace man, he helped the glass man, he helped the moving person, but he also started sewing in the basement of our home. He bought
Okay.
a he bought an Army surplus Singer 111W. I can
That's the
remember the
Singer,
model number.
the sewing machines.
An
Hmm.
industrial sewing machine, but I
I
can,
remember those.
yeah.
Mhm.
So it was olive drab in color, and now the machines are white.
Yeah.
But and he started sewing, and then he moved it from our basement to Grandpa's grocery store in the neighborhood. So my grandfather was a, let's see, when he moved, my grandfather would have just, it was, I can't quite place it. My grandfather was, I'm not sure he was dead or alive when he moved. I think he had passed away because
Mhm.
the family wondered what to do with his grocery store that was just sitting there vacant, and my dad put his store in there.
Okay.
And so he had one full-time person sewing, and they were trying to find their niche in sewing, and he wasn't quite there yet. And then I went to work for him, and we just got along really well. My dad really wasn't the sewing machine operator. He just liked the putz, kind of. The word was putz back then, like
Putts.
ding. Yeah, I
Mhm.
don't know where that word comes from, but it's like do little meaning.
Putting around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like
Hmm.
doing little things. And so um, I what I didn't realize, or what the world didn't realize, is I was really good at math, and I was good student and all that stuff, but I
Hmm.
also was a craftsman, and I
Right.
really should have taken shop classes, which weren't available to me.
Right.
So I started understanding that fabric is
Hmm.
this medium that you can. It's very creative. I mean, you can sit at a table and cut and rip and refit it, or even if it's a boat, from a boat cover to a shirt. I mean, it's all the same. Where you would fit
Right.
it and look at it and imagine it, and I just got wrapped up into that world. So my dad was making bags.
Hmm.
We had heavy sewing machines, and so he started trying to figure out what to do, but he was getting boat covers to repair, and there's
Okay.
tons of lakes around here,
Right.
and so I started repairing them because I was the full-time male, or heavier, stronger. There was Evelyn
Hmm.
who did the bags, and I
Hmm.
became kind of the heavy guy, the heavier person making things. But then I dreamed of someday being able to make a boat cover from scratch, where a boat cover is different than a cover for a box, a
Hmm.
cover for an air conditioner, let's say, where it's just measurements, 3 dimensions, length, width, height,
Right.
cut it, add a seam allowance, and make it. A boat cover is like a fitting. It's a 3D imagination of how are you going to start
Mhm.
and where are you going to put it together. And I was fascinated by that, and I got really good at it,
Mhm.
luckily. And the other most important thing is that for the whole world to hear,
Mhm.
I started tapping into the resort area down, which is where I live now, in the resort area, where the wealth of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin, and the northwestern suburbs of Chicago
Mhm.
vacationed.
Right.
These are people, a who's who of people in the world. They own
Good
summer
spot.
homes.
Location. Location. Location.
Yeah, they all have summer homes here in this area,
Right.
and they come up for the weekend, and
Mhm.
they have a tree that fell down, the drain is clogged, and the boat cover's ripped. So they call the tree guy, they call the plumber, and they call the boat cover guy. Okay,
Wow.
the 21-year-old boat cover guy, and
Right.
the only one that shows up on time is me.
Showing up is important.
Showing up on
Mhm.
time is important. And
Mhm.
I did a good job, and I did what I was going to say, and I
Mhm.
estimated, and I hit the estimate, and I didn't overcharge,
Right.
and my name just spread there.
Wow.
And it was
Mhm.
only because I showed up on. It's just amazing. I mean, it's a great story and a great lesson for
It
everybody,
is.
that people just up that. And I think my body language back
Mhm.
then was, my tail was wagging. Like, what can I learn from you? You're
What could I?
a
Right.
successful businessman, and there's another story that ties in with this, that was just magnificent for me as a young person. I lived on the poor side of town. I told you I was a good athlete. When I was a junior in high school, I got invited to a party
Mhm.
at one of the cute girls that lives on the other side of town.
On the other
And I
side of the
was,
track.
yeah, on the other side. And 2 weeks after that party, her uncle met me and
Mhm.
said, you know, we'd rather folks like you didn't come to our parties.
Oh wow.
Okay. And I was not offended by that. I said, oh, that's how it works. And that's fine with me because I'm happy where I love my friends and I've always been, strong
Mhm.
internally. So it didn't
Mhm.
bother me. I didn't feel that a bit. But I
Right.
just thought, okay, now I'm getting to be older. I'm 17 and a junior in high school and I'm learning the way of
Mhm.
the way
The
of the
world
land.
of the world.
Okay. So now I am down there making boat covers and I'm trying to find the president of Allstate Insurance. And I'm chasing him down to make an appointment to see his boat cover between his home in San Francisco and his home in Chicago and his home up here. Okay.
Right.
And I make it down there and I walk into his home and he'll tell you the story. I mean, this would be 1976, maybe
Okay.
75, 4, somewhere in there.
Mhm.
Um, I walk in my house and my jaw hit the ground. It's like, this is your third home? A $2 million third home?
Right. Right.
How does this wealth happen? Which this guy has wealth 10 times more than the person that told me to stay away from their family, right?
Right.
But now I'm welcomed by Al,
Right.
and the next thing you know, he's picked up on my tail wagging, and I'm sitting at his coffee table or his kitchen table, and he's treating me like an equal.
Wow. Wow.
And just so you know, I mean, I love telling that story because he's 94 and I had coffee with him yesterday morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
I
still
mean, just a
around. Mhm.
magnificent man that just melts me. I mean, but he told me there's more to this than what you have in Ironwood, this, kind of encapsulating town of Ironwood.
Right.
And so he started introducing me to friends, and I
Mhm.
mean, I could tell you a who's who of people who I've met
Mhm.
just because I was a good boat cover maker. Then what happened to me was, I'll go a little faster now in time.
Mhm.
I was up in Ashland because these are all inland lakes. These are inland lakes with boats that don't get longer than 20 feet. But we
Mhm.
also live next to Lake Superior, and a 20-foot boat would get sunk in
Thanks
Lake
for your.
Superior. Now these are the big boats, and these you can't. They're more difficult and they take lots of trips. And I was working on a three-masted 38-foot sailboat, and the guy asked me. He said, "Have you ever done production work?" And I said, "No, but someday I'm going to have a factory with people in it." And da 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 da. And he said, "I'd like to do something with it." I proposed. So we started a physical therapy supply catalog together. I was
No.
making pillows and neck braces and stuff. I didn't know how to run a factory, so I got the idea to try using people in their homes.
Mhm.
So back in 1983 or 1984, I had 4, 5, or 6 women, depending on the time, sitting at home sewing while the brownies are baking and the kids are sleeping and the diapers are between diaper changing by piecework so they could get up whenever they needed to. So I would just pay them by what they produced. But they were making about $12 an hour back in 1984,
Wow.
which, and it
That
was
was a lot back
and
then. Yeah.
I was in seventh heaven and this business exploded. But then I kind of just learned about things. And what happened then was I realized that I, I was so excited about sewing and growing and being like Al, let's say, and just having something that I didn't really realize the macroeconomics of the world where the sewing business was really leaving the United States. It wasn't really surviving in the United States. It was leaving in the 80s.
Right.
All the big factories were, going away. We're close to Oshkosh B'gosh. We're
Mhm.
close to Jansport. I mean, all those places, Carhartt's down in Michigan, and they're all just kind of leaving, finding that lower price stuff. Well, I really was ignorant of that, or I don't know what it was, but I just kept figuring out. And so what we were able to do is take the craftsmen in the company. There were 4 or 5 of us that were very creative and crafty, and learning how to do odd sewing contracting work, not the run of the mill sewing where let's say we're Hanes and we're making T-shirts.
Right.
Um, we can't compete making 500,000 T-shirts a week because that's just all driven by price, by labor price.
Right.
But we found these odd niches of creativity, and we just started. doing small batches of really non-connected articles. So we made production boat covers. We made motorcycle seats for a major motorcycle company in the United States. We made canopies for swing sets. We've done military contracting. None of them matching in what they were, except they needed a needle and a thread. And then I tapped into this the secret weapon of us growing. It was the sewing machine suppliers.
Oh.
Which nobody would think of, but in the United States, there are probably only 6 in the whole United States, big sewing machine distributors.
And what led you to that thought process?
Well, I started talking. I became really friends, and what started that was my dad had 2 sewing machines.
Okay, the Singer, right?
No, they were Pfaffs. So he had grown out of the Singers and Pfaff, Pfaff.
Okay.
And when one of them was in disrepair, one of them broke down, he had to take the head off, leave the table and the motor, and take the head out. He put it in a wooden box that he made, screwed the wooden box together, and brought it to the bus station. And the bus would take it to Minneapolis, and it'd be gone for 2 weeks to get repaired. And so I had a big order to do, and the machine broke down, and I called him and said, "Can you help me fix this without me sending it to you?" And the man, who ended up being like I have 2 or 3 of these guys in my life that almost became like proud uncles of me.
Right.
Like was able to graphically tell me, that little thing that looks like an upside down J, it needs to be your fingernail thickness away from the bobbin case. And so he described things like that, and I became a really good mechanic because of that. Well, then I started talking to them, and then I started going to visit them, and because I liked Ted, and then I realized how much knowledge. Now you think about these guys, the guy in Minneapolis, he's been in every sewing factory in basically the center of the United States. So if you wanted to make sleeping bags, for example, you'd go to him and say, "I want to make sleeping bags." And he'd say, "So-and-so in South Dakota does them this way. So-and-so in Mississippi does them this way. And so-and-so in Indiana does them this way. And I'd really suggest you follow what, it seems like Indiana's doing them the best." So that's a Singer 413, and it's this blowing machine. And so anytime I wanted to make something new, I just call him and say, "How do you make a bedroom slipper?" And he'd say, "Well, so-and-so, so they had this secret knowledge, and it was not, I don't know if they were crossing borders of proprietary when they go into a factory and see how people do it, but I got all this information. So every time we made something new, I would just call them up and say, "How do I do it?" And then our people would sit and figure it out.
Right.
So we were doing that.
How many times do you think that you've approached some of this and it's failed versus succeeded?
Oh, typical entrepreneurial stuff, at least 30% or 40%.
About 30%. Okay.
Yeah, in fact, I was on a board once, and and everybody I was the only private person on the board, and everybody else had worked in the public sector. And one of them comes up to me and says, I'm reading a book about entrepreneurs," and he said, "Do you know that an entrepreneur can spend $30,000 or $40,000 on a project, and it fails, and they just go on to the next one?" And I go, "Okay, what's the story here?"
Right.
You just have to have to just love failure. In fact,
yes, fail forward.
I could go in the back because I'm now honored to be working for a pretty large consulting company, and I have a CEO group that I'm overseeing.
Oh, wonderful.
And one of the terms that we use is, "I am not a failure, I am a learner."
There you go.
And it's a great, and I made these little posters, and if you'd like one,
I'd love to have
I'd
one.
give you one to put in your
The
office.
story of my life. But yes.
I'd love to give you one for my. I just printed 6 more because people are asking for it. But it's and another thing is, if you didn't finish college, I got and I have no degree. I'm always with degreed people. Every time I make a mistake and it costs me money, I say, "Oh, this is my PhD in business
Learning
economics."
Hard knocks.
Yeah.
Business economics. Yes, there you go.
Yeah. And so lots of failures. I mean, I could tell you lots of them. And one of the things that happened, and I can kind of, when you talk about where this is going and everything like that. So now we're a contractor. So we're contracting for people. We're making things for other people. Now think about that. The dynamics of who I am in this community. Okay. Somebody sends you an order for 1,000 widgets, whatever it may be.
Mhm.
Okay, and they want it in 3 weeks, and you say, I can do it. Now the 3 weeks is over. What do I do with those people that just worked on them? Okay, so
Mhm.
balancing the company has been always very, very difficult. When you're a contractor, you got to wait
Right.
for another order. You got to go fill up the pipeline, all that stuff. You get bigger customers, and they decide to go away. For example, we worked with a major company that we made 400,000 widgets a year for them, and they allowed 2 rejects per thousand. Okay,
Wow.
that was
It's
their
a very small
okay,
amount
and
for.
we were on a run of 60,800 with 0 defects. We had made
Wow.
60,000 and nothing has come back. And a man walked in the door that's right behind you and said, and he had an appointment. He came from the factory and he sat in the conference room and he started to cry. And he said, I can't believe they sent me to do this, but I'm here to shut you down. We've decided
Wow.
to take this to Monterrey, Mexico.
Wow.
And so,
Mhm.
without any cause, or, any reason other than economics,
Right. Right.
30 people had no work, just like that.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
And the man was so distraught and upset from that. At first, my first inclination was, this guy's really hurting, and he didn't make the decision. We loved working with him, and I just said, you're okay. You did your job. But how about if I get you out of this? Because this is a crappy thing for you, and it doesn't have to be. It's crappy for me, but it doesn't have to be for you. You're just
Right.
simply the messenger. So I walked him out the door and said, "You go downtown and have a donut and coffee, and we'll be
A pasty.
yeah, pasty, and we'll figure it out. We'll
Right.
figure it out." But that's what happens, and so then you got this dip, and I don't want to lay anybody off. I don't want to have the reputation in a little town that if you come to work for us, you might get laid off.
Right.
So we had to keep that balance. So then
Mhm.
there's the Stormy Kromer story, which
Yeah.
should I get to that
Please.
now? I mean,
Yeah.
because
Tell me
that's
about
what
that.
kind of happened.
Yes. Would love to.
So there was this hat that's
Mhm.
on my head right now, and I wore one. We called it a Kromer. It wasn't called a Stormy Kromer then. It was called a Kromer,
Right.
and the Kromer company was making them, and I wore one. That's what I knew.
Mhm.
And it turned out there's a longer story than that we don't have to go to, but the Kromer Cap Company was making two styles of hats. One style, not this one, was outselling. They had 50 weeks of orders for the other style hat and 2 weeks a year for the next year of orders for this hat. And they discontinued making this hat. So this
Mhm.
whole story started from me purchasing the rights to make something that was somebody else discontinued, and makes the story even more fun for me
Wow. Tell me.
to
Yeah. Yeah.
figure about that. So what happened was they stopped making the hats.
Right.
There were very few dealers that sold this hat. Lots
Right.
of dealers sold the other hat, but this hat had few, very few. But what this hat gave those few dealers was a point of differentiation for their little store.
Mhm.
So people came to Ironwood
Mhm.
and would do two things. They'd go buy one of those goofy Cromer caps and go downtown and have a pasty, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what Ironwood was.
Yeah.
Those were both part of Ironwood's unique character.
Right.
So right after they discontinued making the hats, the local dealer called an order in. It was June of 2001 to fill in order of hats, and they said, "I'm sorry, we're not making the hats." And this guy was, he's passed away now, but he was very opinionated and had a little bit of a temper, and he didn't know I didn't know much about what was going on, but he knew I was in the sewing business, making other things. We had
Right.
never made clothing, never made a piece of hat, but never made
Mhm.
a hat or a piece of clothing. And I was in the same restaurant. And he came up to me and said, "They quit making Cromer caps. You
Mm.
better do something about it." And I remember just
And there's your
smiling.
charge.
Yeah, I remember smiling and said, "Get me the number. I'll buy the dang company." I mean, that's what
Mhm.
I said to him. It's
Right.
exactly what I said to him, because and after
Mhm.
it came out of my mouth, I said, "Yeah, right. You're gonna buy this company. That's of course you'll never
Careful
own
what you
this
say,
company.
huh?
Yeah, be careful."
Mhm.
Yeah, and he locked the
Mhm.
phone number in, and I called the guy, and we
Mhm.
made it happen.
Mhm.
Um, what I didn't see, the thing that all of the business knowledge that I would have, what I didn't see was the value of the history that came free with this hat.
Hmm. Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So um, after when we were in the middle of the negotiation, because I wasn't buying a business, I was, there's no federal ID number to exchange. I mean, it really wasn't that complicated. If we would have known each other a little better, we could have done it with a handshake.
Right.
You know, because it was
Right.
like, I'm going to start making this hat, and you're going to keep making that hat.
Right.
And so the contract that I wrote
Mhm.
with 5 or 6 iterations, but I just wrote it because it was just kind of simple. Let's just sign it. You could write a contract, and I signed it. It's
Right.
okay. He'd let me in his factory to show me how to make hats. He'd give me the names of the dealers, the suppliers. I would never make his hat, the one he was, because we weren't. There
Right.
was no intention of.
Compete of
I wanted to
the
stay
same.
friends. In fact, he's
Right.
one of those proud uncles that we talked about. The man
Wow.
that I bought
Look
it
at
from.
that. Mhm.
And then I'd pay him a sum of money. And when it was all done, I said to him, he said, I'm going to sign this. I like what I have. And this is before emails. This is fax machine. You know, stick it in the fax machine
Yeah.
and wait for him to read it, of course.
Mm.
And he said, I'm going to sign your document. And I said, oh, Dick, this is such a cool story. I get to tell this, is that I did this without a lawyer.
Wow.
You know, what a great story. What a great story to tell my
Yeah.
grandchildren that I
Yes.
did this big negotiation, you know. And he said, oh, Bob, I'm sorry, but did you know, speaking of your grandchildren, did you know there was a little golden book written about Stormy Kromer? So over there, if you look at the little green and red little train there, you can see that's the golden book what's written about Stormy Kromer. That's right under
Over there.
the gold
Yeah.
black sign there.
Mhm.
That's actually the golden book written about Stormy Kromer, last
Wow.
published in 1965. And it's the
Wow.
story of, and you open it up, this is the fictitious, it's called Mr. Puffer Bill. And so I got that book. He owned 4 copies, and he gave me 2, and he kept 2 for his family. And it didn't connect me yet until about 8 months into me making the business. And keep in mind that this was tiny when I bought it. I mean,
Mm.
we manufacture the amount of hats that they manufactured in a year, we manufacture every 4 days.
Wow. In terms of size of company, though, like square footage or what have you.
It took up this little place, you know. It was less than 5% of our sales, and we had
Mhm.
in the business world, we had an 800-pound gorilla, a monster customer that we started with small, and they just kept growing and growing and growing, and it was almost out of control. It was so big.
Mm.
You can have one customer be too much of a percentage of your sales, so that if something
Right.
happens to them, it takes you out of business, you know. So
Right.
and they were about there, but we didn't. I didn't at that time. I didn't quite understand how to handle that.
Right.
Stormy Kromer actually handled it for us.
For
We
you.
didn't see it come 10
Mhm.
years later, but so we shoved this on the side, this business on the side, and the one thing that was good about it was everything else we had done had a timeline on it. I need
Mhm.
this many widgets at this time, ship them.
Mhm.
Now, if I'm going to make winter hats for next winter, the winter of 25, 26, actually, we're making them now. We're starting to build the forecast for next year. We're still filling in holes of sales of current hats, but we're also filling in the forecast for next year. So that was even when it was tiny, I could, if there was no work for you, I could have you go make hats in February for next November.
Right.
It was my inventory. I could put them on the shelf whenever I wanted to. So it really wasn't that, it wasn't that important when we made them. So,
Mhm.
but what happened was the unbelievably cool kicker was Mrs. Kangas ran our 4-H program in town, and she came up to me and said, this is about 8 months into the business. She came up to me and said, are Kromer caps really made in my hometown? And I remember feeling all warm and fuzzy and saying, yeah. She says, oh, I need to show you something. And she reaches in her purse and she hands me this photo. And now the nice, lovely older lady is handing me the wrong picture because I'm looking at a picture of her pet's grave marker. Okay, so her dog or cat died and somebody made a cross. Somebody took a picture on it. And I'm, thinking about how do I politely give it back to her and say, you gave me the wrong picture. She said, that's the grave marker where my husband Dave's Kromer cap is buried on Isle Royal. And I go,
Wow.
what? And Isle Royal, I don't know if you're familiar with it,
No,
but
no.
it's a monstrous island in the middle of Lake Superior. It's part of the
Mhm.
United States territory, but it's just the border of Canada and the United States goes right through the middle of Lake Superior, and it's just on the American side. Wolves and moose. It's a national park. And you get there only by boat. It's a great big island. If you look now at Lake Superior, it's the only
Right.
island that would show up in Lake Superior. It's big, and it's a national park, and it's just hikers and no motorized vehicles and all that stuff.
Mhm.
Her husband loved to fish there, and when he died, his fishing buddies got an easement from the U.S. Park Service for a 4-foot hat burial ground. So there's a legal 4-foot hat burial ground They
Wow.
bought an ashes urn and rolled the hat up and put it in the ashes urn, and it's still buried there. The cross is still there, and
Wow.
it's a permanent hat grave
That
marker on
is,
a national park. I mean, think about the effort to
yeah.
memorialize the guy's hat. And so,
The things you learn, It's,
so what really was um, evident to me was that I was coming back from that, and I'm thinking about this, and I, got this golden book, and I got this story, and I had heard in the meantime, I had heard like you can't come to the hunting camp in North Ironwood unless you have a Kromer cap on. I mean, that was kind of a rule for a couple of the places, and so there's all this little stuff. So I thought, I wonder if I'm missing something. I wonder if there's more to this brand.
Mhm.
And one of the things about there's I have all these internalized things about living here, and when when I dropped out of college in the 70s, I was called the Upper Peninsula. UP was called the Upper Peninsula. We
Mhm.
were called Yoopers,
Right.
but instead of UP for your audience, it's Yooper. And a Yooper was almost like calling me an Appalachian hillbilly. That meant
Oh.
I had an outhouse. I didn't have running water. I didn't have all my teeth. I didn't speak the Queen's English. Okay, it was
Right.
very, very, very
Mm.
derogatory, and
Wow.
I
I didn't know
hated
that.
it. I
Wow.
just hate it. Now that term Youper is very endearing. Now
Yeah,
many people
because
want to be a Youper now, but
right.
back then it was, and there was a band called the Youpers that
Mhm.
had songs that were just pathetic.
What caused the change, though, in terms of perception of that?
I think people just realized how cool it is here, like you did. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, maybe you have these funny jokes about this place, but this is really cool here. I mean, that's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah. It's different.
that's
Yeah.
just, yeah. But so I was a lifetime defier of that term. Like I can speak the Queen's English. I have
Right.
running water. I mean, I gave a speech in Detroit about Stormy Kromer, and I started out with a picture of my bathroom to show them I had indoor plumbing. Honest to goodness, and I just want you to know
That's,
that,
yeah.
yeah. And I was, and it's a hard crowd in Detroit for somebody like me, and so it was just kind of fun. But
Right.
so I owned my little company before I bought Stormy Kromer. I was told by UP Office Supply that I owned the first fax machine in the UP.
Okay.
So I wanted to stay ahead of technology and stuff like that. And so that's in my head that I want to look good. And
Hmm.
I didn't have a vision of how I could brand Stormy Kromer. And I said to myself, so I'm thinking about the story on Isle Royal, and I'm thinking about my branding, and I'm thinking about I haven't come out of the blocks yet with a good logo or anything like that. I'm gonna go learn from ad agencies. I'm gonna go to
Hmm.
marketing ad agencies, whatever you want to call them. And because I bought it from Milwaukee, I made appointments for five to five agencies, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I was smart enough to know that I could get they needed work, they needed business, right? So I could go have a conversation with them and look and probably pick up some ideas on how to do this for free. I mean, basically got a hat that I got some of those old photos that are over there. Um, so I take these, a hat and some old photos, and I interviewed five agencies. Okay, if you had this, what would you do with it? If you had this, what would you do with it? And the creative director at the place that I end up hiring looked at me and said, "You don't have a clue what you've got here." And I go, "No, I don't. What do I have here?" And he said, "Well," and it was kind of fun because I love to be the person that doesn't know. I mean, it's kind of fun to just kind of say, "I don't know anything about this. What, and you're smarter than me. Tell me." And so he kind of dumbed it down. Well, he said, imagine if we made this hat today, and for the audience that doesn't know, the ear flaps, the way the ear flaps work is patented. They just come straight down and they cover your ear, most of your ear. And so,
Hmm.
and this was patented. And he said to me, if we patented this hat today, it would be like September of 2002. Would we have a 1914 picture of the husband and wife that made the first hat? Would we have this kind of stuff? And I said no. And we have, for example, there's a 1937 movie called Slim that Henry Fonda's wearing a Cromer cap
Go
in the
ahead.
whole movie, and
Hmm.
Charles Bronson's wearing one, and
Oh,
it's
Charles
either
Bronson.
it's either Death Wish or Death Hunt, 1968, but it's
Okay.
a Canadian movie, and he's wearing a
Right.
Cromer, but that all came free, with
Right.
this brand. I mean, I didn't pay anything for that,
Right.
and so this agency saying this stuff is gold to us.
Right.
So that's what I that was kind of the kicker why I picked them.
So, as I listen to you talk about how all this has evolved, right? If if you were building this today, right? Because now you've established to a certain point. Well, would you say, are you content where you are now with this company?
Am I
Is that,
content? Oh
yeah.
no, I mean well there what I'm content with life or with this company.
With company for now. Let's just
The
say
company.
the
Okay,
company.
so
Mhm.
where we are right now with the company is another part of this is I have two daughters here,
Okay.
both of them, Gina and KJ. Um, Many people would know that family businesses have a real strong dynamic, and
Right.
when that was starting to take place, that one daughter was here and one daughter was away, but so then I had this odd thing: well, how do I balance the reward
Right.
as the family and all that stuff? I sought a family transition business counselor. Okay.
Okay.
And I
Mhm.
was told, and I'd love for if this idea would help anybody, because I tell a lot of people this. I was the second youngest person to walk in their door in the company's history. Usually people
Mhm.
walk in there when they're 70 and say, "Help me, I want to
Right.
sell my business." I was there when I was 51.
Wow. Hmm.
And they've given us great counsel on how to make this happen. And one of the things that you wouldn't see, nobody would see because it's private business and we don't have to share this,
Right.
the success of handing the business off to my daughters is very, very powerful. And I'm, quietly very, very proud of that. That's a big part of who I am.
Right.
Not on my watch.
Right.
Am I going to be laying on my deathbed with one daughter mad about this business and not there because she's ticked off because some
That is
stupid thing
very
that happened at
admirable.
the business? This business will not break up my family. So keep that.
That is
That's
that's a wonderful thing because it always goes in the other direction
yeah. So that's
so many
so
often.
so
Yeah.
we're in that right now, and
Hmm.
my oldest daughter Gina is the CEO.
Right.
I'm the company advisor now and everything like that. And we have plans. The part that would not make us content would be, and I need to blow my nose. Hang on a second. Um, so anyway, so Gina is
Gina's the CEO.
Gina's CEO,
You're the chairman.
and I'm the chairman, and so here's where we are right now. When I bought the company, we were a small business.
Right.
It just kind of grew and it grew to be a big small business,
Hmm.
which was fantastic. But then we crossed the line and we became a small big business. We were a brand that people know. Like we're
Hmm.
doing a collab with, I won't say it online here, but we're doing a collab next December. I cannot believe they reached out to us.
Hmm.
It's pretty
Hmm.
special.
That's
And
good.
but people, because we're punching above our weight here with our branding and that whole thing about being a Youper and us not on my watch and us wanting to look really good and have branding that looks professional and all this stuff,
Right.
we really look so much bigger that people think we are bigger and they have those expectations of us being a bigger company with financial backing and
Right.
promotions and advertising and things like that. And so, like for example, think about Googling winter hat. Just think about how many big companies. I won't mention any names. I
Right.
can, I won't do
Right.
it on, but you can think of all the names of people, great companies that can out arm wrestle us just by sheer dollars to
Hmm.
get to the top of that Google ad space. So we're in that mode right now, and that's the next hurdle is how do we get there? We are, people passionately walk in this door and can't believe they're at the factory, and I autograph hats and all that fun stuff to a very limited audience. I mean, my daughter Gina has a great statement saying, you either passionately love us or you never heard of us.
Right.
And there's
Right.
too many
Hmm.
people that have never heard of us, and cracking that nut is has been tricky. So that's the next kind of
Right.
that's the next obstacle. So
Well, it's reaching.
I'm sitting
Yeah.
on the side now, um, and you watch the dynamics of your children, right?
Hmm.
Gina, the one that was gone and came back and is the CEO now,
Yeah.
she does not want her daddy around. Okay.
Okay.
Her
Mhm.
elder business advisor is fine, but her daddy is right. So
Mhm.
I learned that really quickly. I'm you know we get along so well that she would love, she's
Right.
fine with me. She's 50 years old, and but when she first came back, I'd go into her office and say, "How's it going?" And she'd get this look on her face like, "There's daddy checking on
Check.
me."
Right.
So I realized that's not what I should be doing. So I worked really hard, got counselors in Minneapolis to help me with this and how do I do this. And so I
Mhm.
just shut up and sat in my office until there's a knock on my door.
Right.
Dad, you got a minute for some advice? Then I'm the advisor, not the daddy. And so
Right.
that whole dynamic has been so we're working on a couple of pretty cool projects to figure out how to
Mhm.
get into that space. I mean, think about the cool brands. There's LL Bean and there's Cabela's and there's Columbia,
Right.
and those are
Right. Right.
you have
Mhm.
no idea how small we are compared to them. But
Yeah.
we're sitting on the shelf in a store right next to them. We're in an outdoor store, and there's Stormy Kromer in that rack, and Columbia on that rack.
Right.
And people compare us this in the same light. Um,
But you have story and you have spirit. Like to me, if I hear Columbia or I hear some of these other big brands, and then I hear Stormy Kromer, Stormy Kromer has a narrative to it. Like it has a spirit to it.
yeah,
It's smaller, but there's something that feels more connective with it than some
it's
of the bigger.
that
So.
that's really an
Hmm.
interesting observation. And here's
Hmm.
how I can tell you exactly how that is. We are actually we're working on two or three ideas right now, but we got we were reached out by the chief marketing officer of a very major brand that everybody in this room would know.
Hmm.
And he said, "My company lost its soul, and I want to work with a company that
That
has a
soul.
soul." And
There it is.
that's
There
exactly
it
what you
is.
just said.
It
And
is.
he's
Yeah.
and so he's we're
Mm.
talking to him about how
Good.
he can help bring that. 'Cause he
Mm.
says that they've lost their soul. Private equity comes in; it's all about the bottom line. We're just, we're just a family business trying to make a mark in a little community. So,
Yeah. I mean, when you look back at your life and you look at this, and you talk about family, you talk about the spirit of this, or I said the spirit of it, but as you mentioned, you kind of validated just that there is a soul to all of this here, and I think. I mean, how much of this is just chance for you, in a sense, like the serendipitous in the way that it
well,
unfolded to get here?
you are really pulling
Because
all the good stuff out of me. That's just really good. Um, I can remember I was standing right there in the retail store after a tour, and a businessman, inquisitive with the same thinking that you had, at that level, just kind of thinking at a partner level. And he kind of asked the same thing. And I said, I've been really lucky, like really lucky. And he smiled and he says, "That's not luck. We call that plucky."
plucky.
Okay. And I said, What's that?" And he says, "So many people have opportunities go by them, but you were smart enough to grab this opportunity of Stormy Kromer. So you were lucky, but you were the one
Hmm.
that said, 'Get me the number and I'll buy the company.'" So
Right.
I actually have a talk because I get asked to talk, but I have a
Hmm.
talk when I'm talking to younger people. It's about being plucky. Watch the opportunities and don't let
Hmm.
them pass you by. I mean, so
That is a lot of that.
serendipity, but
Hmm.
for me, it's plucky works better for me because
Plucky.
yeah. So
I like that.
yeah, so it's just kind of what happened to me was all of these other things.
Right.
And another driving force that I'm sure you talked
Hmm.
about. There are so many people that wouldn't know what Ironwood is and what it's like and everything like that. So imagine me living on the poor side. Let's go back to me being 20.
Hmm.
I fell in love with Denise. I'm married. But 5 years ago, that man had told me I shouldn't go to the parties with his girlfriend. I got married when I was 20, so whatever, 21. Um, and so I'm got this little business back then with sale. I think in an hour we do the sales that business did in a year. I mean, it was just I mean, it's grown just so amazingly wonderfully. I watched at Christmas time. I watched the movie It's a Wonderful Life.
Okay.
Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Okay. And at the end of the movie,
Mhm.
that I'm not Clarence. George Bailey was shown what an effect he had on the community that he had no idea. right? He had no understanding of the effect he had on the community, and he thought he kind of wasted it. And I thought to myself, what an amazing thing to be able to have an impact on your community like he did. And you asked my whole family, that's been my driving force. I want to be George Bailey, and I want to,
Hmm.
at the end, I want to look back and say, you had a powerful. First of all, I never thought it would ever happen to me, because think about who I was when I saw it for the first time. I was this kid that was told,
Right.
I can't go to parties with rich girls, and now I'm and all of a sudden, 10 years later, somebody comes to me and says, my handicapped cousin works for you. You have any idea what an impact you've had on our lives and my life as his cousin, and my sister, or whoever his parent was, is so relieved because he loves what he does and it's brought energy to their family. Do you have any idea what an impact that was? And so I started hearing those kinds of things.
Right. Sorry.
That makes me almost cry because I have a daughter with the epilepsy trying to get a job, and that just made me.
Yeah, we actually had Wally, who didn't come to work one morning, and he drowned in Lake Superior. Had an he was he would have seizures right while he was working here. But
Oh,
we could always manage that, having those kinds of people around. And so anyway, so I started understanding that I could have an effect on the community. And now, people come here for tours. You came here because of, my pluckiness, right?
right, right.
So that's been a real strong driving force for me too. I mean, that's not public at all. I mean, it's fine to tell your podcast, but I would never, talk about that. But
Right.
but I tell it often. In fact, I gave a talk to an entrepreneurial class, and the two things I told them that story, and then I said, one of the best things you could do as a young person is, if you see somebody you admire, call them up and say, I admire you. Can I buy you lunch? I'd like to learn from you.
Right.
Who wouldn't?
Right.
I've done that 200 times and
Yeah.
not failed.
Yeah. I've had it. I just interviewed two of my mentors in the film world, and that I met a long time ago, and yeah, and they've helped me to get to
It's a
what I've
it's a compliment and everything like
so
that. So that's all been just part of it. I've been just extremely fortunate that what's going on here has an impact on the community.
So you would measure success as in the level of impact, and I love that in the sense of the impact that you're making. It's not just about you and your company, but how you're impacting others and those that are part of your success. I would say, right?
Yeah, and one of the things, I think about this a lot. I've been around lots of CEOs and everything like that, and there's a level of intensity that comes with the very, very successful people. I mean, but they've given up a lot.
Yes.
Maybe a family, maybe their health. I mean, in order to get at that level that's one step or two steps above me, it takes a different level of intensity that I will not give, because I take care of my health. I'm a cyclist and I'm an exercise person. I will not give that up. My family's important. My two in-laws are still alive, and we'll leave this company if my mother-in-law fell the other day, and somebody from the company went and helped her. I mean, you can't get to that level when you're taking care of your mother-in-law, and I refuse to let. So, but that's
what did you give up, if anything, in anything?
More wealth.
Okay.
More success, more wealth, and stuff like that. But that would have taken moving out of here, and that would have taken giving up this life, this wonderful life here, and I didn't need it. And when you're around somebody, where I'm in the room with a graduate of Michigan Tech, which I didn't graduate from, there was a level of intimidation there. I'm the small town guy that never left town. I just stayed here my whole life. Well, what's interesting about that was it was my kick in the butt that really helped me understand that. Keep in mind, I know all these cool people down in that resort area, and I'm friends now with them, and there's a bunch of proud uncles down there watching.
There's a lot of proud uncles.
They saw me come with holes in my blue jeans and work boots on, and now I have a business. In fact, I'm having lunch with one of them today.
And contentment, right? I mean, I know in business, as business owners, we always want more. We always want more. But you said, in terms of what you sacrifice would have been more wealth in terms of that. So for you, I guess, would you say that you're like, hey, I have enough. I had enough. I'm content in that space, so that I didn't have to go over for the bigger carrot that I could probably go for, because this brings me happiness at the level that I am at right now.
Yes,
Would
and
that
that's
be
exactly. And now
accurate?
I'm back on track here, where um, I was down. I was watching a football game in a restaurant, amongst a group of that level of people.
Right.
Okay, and a major publishing family, Hampton, the largest Hampton Inn franchise owner in the world.
Mm.
Um, a who's who of people,
Right.
and Bob, Bob from Stormy Kromer.
Right.
And I'm there, and sitting, and a commercial comes out. The Packers, the Green Bay Packers is our team here, right? So they're playing the second game, the 3 o'clock game, and it's about 5 o'clock, and a commercial comes on, and the wealthiest guy in the room goes like this, checking his watch. He's got to get back to Chicago tonight,
Right.
and he looks at me with all the envy anybody could have, and says, "You get to stay here."
Wow.
And I
Look at
realized
that.
what was going on. He could care less about his $7 million Cessna CJ3 that's at the airport.
Mhm.
He would love to just be able to, like I live on the same lake as he does,
Right.
but on Tuesday I'm going to go for a ride around it on my bicycle, and he's in traffic in Chicago or whatever,
Right.
And
Right. Right.
so that was kind of nice for me to finally, and I
Mhm.
was 55 or something when I heard that, maybe 60, I don't know. But it was nice to hear that, because
Right.
it made a lot of sense. It kind of put it all into perspective. Um,
Because time is important, and
yeah,
and you can't replace that,
yeah.
right?
And another thing that's cool about living here is when you're live in these rural areas where there's spaces between everybody, there really are no Joneses to have to keep up with. Even for
Right.
my wife, or there's no high society women for her to have to keep up with, or any of that stuff. We're just all you can my wife's two best friends are the coolest people, but they aren't what you would think they would, that she would have as friends.
Right.
One of the ladies that she's friends with cleans hotels, and
Right.
that's one of her very best
Best
friends.
friends. Yeah.
You would think that I'd have to be another CEO's wife or something like that, and
Yeah.
that's not how it works in these little towns. Because
Yeah.
we were classmates, or we're all part of the same town, or
I was just having this conversation a few weeks back. We were in Costa Rica with my brother, who's Danish. We were born in England, but my brother,
Oh, cool.
from a different mother, he's in Denmark, and I was along with another one of my sisters who's English as well with me, but she lives in South America, and we're all in Costa Rica, and we're talking about cultures and that. And in Denmark, everything is just so. My brother's a surgeon, and my sister is like the surgeon general in Guyana, sort of like the equivalent she was, right? But they live in a way that everyone is almost like on the same level, right?
No,
And in Denmark, they don't drive a car, they ride bicycles and things like that.
yeah.
But the culture class difference gap is so much smaller, and so they're a lot happier. And that's what I'm getting
Yeah,
from what
great.
you're saying
Yeah,
here as well.
great example. Yeah, that's exactly it. Go sit at the coffee shop, and
Yeah,
we're friends, not because our checkbook
exactly,
balances compare.
exactly.
That's just not it. It's just it's just a different way of life, and yeah, it's just
Wow.
phenomenal.
If you had to write a book on your life, what would the book be called?
Wow.
What would you name it?
I didn't have time. Not far off from It's a Wonderful Life. Probably not that far off. Yeah, it's funny. I'm still looking forward. Like, I don't reminisce. I don't even like looking at old photos, because I'm still going forward. I've got eyes looking this way,
Forward.
and I still have things to do and everything like that. So I lived a life. If I did look backwards, I really don't have any regrets. There are things that
I
you
like that.
did. There are those there's those mistakes you made, and those chances you took, and those things that you did, but nothing ever took me down. And there's another part about who I am. I mean, or if that's
Tell me.
important or something like that. I was a marathon runner, a distance runner. I ran the mile in high school, and I ran marathons when I was in my 20s. When you think about that athlete compared to a sprinter, the sprinter's got that natural talent and can just do it, and maybe has to work on their starts. But that's about it. You just have this natural speed, and when you get to the Olympic level, there's some details that you work on. But you're going. But to be a miler, you have to run. To train for a marathon, it's easier. You run a half a mile, and then the next day you run 3/4 of a mile, and then the next day you run a mile, and then you run 5 miles, and then you run 10 miles, and you build up this long, slow
compounding.
And then, and even when you live here, you're shut down to run in the winter, so you hardly run. So then every spring, it starts all over again. You want to run a marathon in August, you run 5 miles in April, and then you run 10 miles in May, and then 15 miles in June, and you build it. The whole life is just a slow, steady, it's this slow, steady angle. And that's really how this happened. When you look at, look at what Bob has here. Well, I've been here over 50 years on this low trajectory. I'm not an IT company that, has an IPO and blasts off in, 6 months.
It's slow compounding.
Yeah, I'm still just, but I'm on this slow, steady guide, and I've lived within the means of all of those episodes and all those chapters, and that would be a thing that I always talk about. My life is just full of chapters. This is just another chapter.
So there's artistry and there's commerce, right? Your business, and then there's the creative side of you that realize that you can design and you can create, and fabric became a thing, right? Now, are there other things, other ambitions outside of that within your artistry space, let's just say, or in the commerce space that you want to accomplish?
Well, artistically or craftsmanship wise, I'm still trying to find a product that I could make that ties into Stormy Kromer that would be like a limited edition, a numbered something. I haven't quite come up with that, but I'd like to. In my retirement, I have, like many men have a wood shop where they have a table saw and a miter saw and a cool place. Well, I've got a cool sewing shop. It's all mine. It's over there. It's not far from where we're sitting. And I've got 3 sewing machines that all do different things. And I do odd things, like I'm going to have the honor of redraping the Ironwood Theater. And that's going to be a personal donation. I'm going to do that this spring. And so Bob the Craftsman is going to make, but drapes aren't really that hard. They're just a lot of work because there's a lot of sewing in them. But I'm looking for something that could be part of my legacy. Like there, I have the number. It'd be almost like a leather Stormy Kromer hat or something. One of the things that's part of it that's very, very, very yucky, controversial is the DNR director of the state of Wisconsin's master's degree is on what is the most environmentally friendly fabric to make clothing out of. That was his master's study, okay? And his master's conclusion was, it's a muskrat. This shirt needed red dye and black dye and chemicals to process the cotton and all that stuff. Where an animal is muskrat is a rat, and you trap 1,000 of them, and tomorrow there's 1,000 of them back in life, right? So there's continually repopulating, and there's a whole story behind this. It's too bad that fur has such a negative in the world of clothing, because I would love to make. I'd love Bob the Craftsman would love to be a furrier, and do the art of putting furs together, because it's very difficult, because they're furs don't come on a roll where you cut fabric out of straight material. You're working with the shape of the animal's body and putting the furs and the naps together. I would love to do something like that, because but it's just not going to happen. So, but that's just part of that is just who I would love to be. I ended up, I could show you a picture, but we got asked by the nun who takes care of the Bishop of St. Cloud, Minnesota, if we could make a bishop's mitre out of red and black plaid wool. And so I gifted him in December of 23. It was his Christmas present, a red and black plaid bishop's mitre. It's gorgeous, and that was probably the nicest thing I've ever done. It took a long time. It was a little bit of handwork and stuff, but it was just a little hat. But I'll show you pictures after we're done here if you wanted.
Well, that's lovely. It's a best question about um, the people behind this here. What can you tell us a little bit about some of the products for those that won't know?
Yeah. So
Um,
what Stormy
mhm,
Kromer has is we started with a hat. This hat made it in red and black. We had an immediate when I bought it, they made it in red and black. Period. We had an immediate expansion for two reasons. Because I lived here, there was so much knowledge that I had. But there was a man who came up here skiing from Minneapolis, and he owned a 1949 Stormy Kromer hat that was made in that year. They made a dark green one, and he bragged and shoved it in everybody's face. I got the only dark green one. You guys just have black and red, and I've got the only dark green
Green.
one. Well, I bought the company. Now I could probably make a dark green one. So I
Right.
bought dark green and navy blue and started adding colors, and I realized that people collected them and just kind of
Right.
that's what happened with the colors.
Mhm.
My daughters wore Stormy Kromer hats when they were in junior high. They were little tiny girls and with smaller heads. They
Mhm.
went to the store and bought one of these and wore them skiing and collected ski hill pins here.
To put around them.
Put
Yeah.
around and clicked them
Yeah.
on.
That's how Uncle Tom has. He,
Oh, okay,
he
yeah,
has a whole
that's
bunch
his.
of
Okay, yeah.
pins
So,
on a lot of his.
but
Mhm.
my recollection was that brim width was too wide for their little seventh grade faces, and women
Mhm.
notoriously have smaller faces.
Right.
So I wondered, what happens if I buy a feminine color? I bought a roll of old rose wool,
Right.
a stock color, because I wasn't
Mhm.
big enough to, have a plaid made for me or anything like that. And they started selling. So that was the start of it. Well, then we became a big hat company. But the hats were always over on the side at a
Mhm.
store. They were over on a shelf with scarves and mittens.
Right.
And one of our sales reps said, "You need more product so I can have a rack in the middle of a store."
Mm.
So that set the vision there. And so then we found he was 64 at the time. He had just got laid off. He was making varsity jackets all his life. So we
Mhm.
brought this old school clothing guy in to help us learn how to fit people's bodies and size things and do all of that.
Mhm.
So, so we started doing clothing, and for about the first 10 years, there was enough creativity inside here that let's make a pink hat and let's make the brim smaller. Doesn't take a designer. It just takes a little
Right.
creativity and knowledge of what you want to try and a lot of experimenting. Then we brought in a then we started bringing in designers. We brought in contract designers, and now we have a full-time designer that works here. So there's a presentation and design presentation, and then there's
Mhm.
choosing, and then there's
Mhm.
the whole process is going on right now. The
When you go to bed at night and you go to sleep, do you go back sleeping thinking of designs and thinking of um, what other product I'm going to make within this? Is that something that consumes you
No,
in any
it
way?
never did. It was always about the bigger part, the growing the part that
The growth
how do
part.
we arm wrestle with the big guys? No,
That's what
that's
consumes you
yeah,
more
but
than the mind thing.
and my side job of working on ski jump in town is another big part of my like today. What is my
Mhm.
life? It's what I'm doing for Gina, and then part time what I'm doing for the community
Right.
and this other project. So
Something I found that speaking to other people, people that you talk about athletics and running, and you do a lot of cycling, and that's a good time for them to think when they run. Me, I'm terrible at running. I can't think and run. I just go and get it over with. When you're cycling, since that seems to be like your thing, what's going through your mind?
you've hit on some really good spot. You're very intuitive. That's pretty
Oh,
interesting. Yeah. So
mhm.
everybody around here mountain bikes. Now, a
Okay.
mountain bike means you're going down this windy curve and you're just constantly concentrating on the bike and not hitting that tree.
Okay.
Okay? I mean, it's
Right.
just dum, 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 dum. When
Okay.
you're out on a 2 mile flat road, straight stretch on a road bike, you're
Mhm.
in this cool zone. And that's why I'm one of the few road bikers around here and not a mountain bike. I mean, there's mountains and mountain biking is huge in this area. But
Right.
I need that straight long road where I can just get into a zone and let my mind wander. You can't believe
Mhm.
the cool stuff I think about, but I
Mhm.
figured out how to let it float and just go. But I have that cycling, but because of our distance away from major markets, I'm a
Mhm.
40,000 mile a year car driver.
Oh,
That's a lot of time in the car, and
yeah.
I can process so well in the car, and I have a whole, I mean, there's a whole system of the cup of coffee and the, what's playing, what music is playing, and I can get into a zone that just goes. But that's that's basically driving on a straight road. And another thing about our roads that I'm sure you're well aware of, there's no traffic here. So there's no
Yeah.
screaming and honking your horn and some idiot cutting you off. It's just cruise control, no cars in your lane for at least the first 2 hours out of here.
Right.
Get to Wausau. There's no traffic between here and Wausau or here in Marquette or here in Duluth. So there's that as well. So those are really great times. In fact, my wife will say, you're pretty tense. You need a trip. Go get in the car.
Right. How much is your wife involved in this?
She's
in terms-
she's the keep the family together. That's her role.
Right. It's a big role.
She knows what's going on, but she never walks in the door, never comes in the door. But she knows what's going on, and she makes sure that that there's a balance between business and the family. And so she'll take one of the daughters out for lunch and make sure. And then, I'll get when you're out for lunch with Carrie, don't look at your phone. She needs 100% dad at lunch. So give her that. You're her boss at work, or chairman or whatever. But she does that kind of stuff.
She does that.
She does a really great job.
It's an important job.
She's
That's the glue.
We find that women are very intuitive as a rule, and so they see that stuff. So
So then let's wrap this up right here. I think that you offered a lot of really great advice. I think that our listeners can be able to learn from, and again, I thank you for short notice and doing this.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate it. So
we could wrap up somewhere else if you wanted to. Come on in.
Yeah,
don't worry. We knew you were coming. Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning.
That guy was here about half an hour ago, and then he came back. The guy with the trailer. Oh. So, the other two cars are ours. I'm leaving in a second. So.
Yeah.
So good morning.
Okay.
Just pretend we're not here.
Okay. Well, I'll offer this. If you had one question for our next guest, whoever that may be, what would that question be?
One question for your next guest?
Yeah.
To make it is a really great life we have, and don't fight it. And are you content? Make sure you're content would be my thought.
Make sure you're content.
One
of my guests said that when people complain about life and thing, he said, but no one ever said that life was supposed to be easy. But then when I speak to you, not that life was easy, but your attitude towards life and the way that you traversed it is very different. And I'm sure a lot of environment and culture and all that plays a part into that, being here within the Upper Peninsula and that culture, is very different than, the run and gun of New York or the Carolinas, right? Or something like that.
One of the things that when I talk, I tell this longer story, but I can go really quickly. There's a man that works for the city of Milwaukee, and he puts water lines into people's houses. So there's a backhoe that comes, but he has a shovel. All day long, he's got a shovel, and he hates his job. Shows up at 1 minute after 7 and on Monday morning and dreading everything. He takes a longer coffee break than he should. You can go through the whole exaggerated "I hate my job" kind of thing. And all he's thinking about is coming to Ironwood to go to to be at his friend's hunting camp. That's how he's going up to Ironwood. He's going to leave the big city and come up here. And you can do the stretch on how crappy his week is.
Right.
And he gets up here on Friday night, and his friend meets him at the gate and says, holding 2 shovels like he's been holding all week. He's put his shovel down in Milwaukee, hating it. And his friend hands him a shovel and says, guess what we're doing today and tomorrow? We're going to dig a septic tank for the hunting camp. So the same guy, the same God's earth, the same shovel is now shoveling at his friend's hunting camp and going to dig a hole for the septic system. And they get up early. They don't take a break. They maybe pop a beer or have a cup of coffee, and they just work with so much energy and love and passion for being at the hunting camp and digging a ditch. And I kind of leave and say, go find your hunting camp. Work at your hunting camp rather than at the city of Milwaukee. I mean, you see that with people. You see that with people a lot where they hate working hard at their job, but they work hard at the thing that
Right.
they're passionate about,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And so go find your passion. And I'm so lucky that because I didn't have a direction, I just fell into this. And, you know, maybe I made some of my contentment and just with a good attitude. But it's just been really great for me. So
Well, on that note, we'll end. Well, thank you, Bob. I appreciate it.
this was
Thank you very
that
much.
was really easy and great. Thanks.
Yeah, well, I'm
You're
glad
so
you enjoyed.